We've got a Godcast, so Denise is over there nodding her head. Like, how do you nod your head and roll your eyes at the same time? I don't know. Running around, fixing this and that, giving it up to God, then taking it back. Just release and let it go. You don't even have to think about it no more. You get out of the way. Get out of the way. Oh, get out the way and let God do its thing. You look like the weight of the world is on your back. Take a deep breath and cut yourself some slack. All that drama ain't good for you. You couldn't change what it is if you wanted to. You get out of the way. Get out of the way. Get out the way and let God do its thing. Oh yeah. The sun's gonna rise, the river's gonna flow, the tide's gonna rise without your say-so. The universe is working, it's good and it's flowing. You don't plant a seed, then dig it up to see if it's growing. You get out of the way. Get out of the way. Oh, get out the way and let God do its thing. You get out of the way. 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 Oh, get out the way and let God do its thing. Oh, I get out the way. Let God do its thing.
Good morning, everyone. I would love to just welcome you to the Unity of Tacoma this morning. I'm so grateful that we have Matt, Corey, and Becky Thatcher here as our musicians rocking the house with us. That is so awesome. And I am turning on my microphone. So I just once again want to welcome you to the Unity of Tacoma and welcome our amazing guest artists, Becky Thatcher and Matt Corey. In case those words weren't picked up for our online, let's give them a big round of applause. We're so glad you're here. So I'm excited to be here this morning and share with you as your guest speaker. And today is a really exciting day for those that follow a Christian tradition because it is Palm Sunday, the Sunday before Easter. But before we get going with all of that, I would like to invite you all to join me in saying our prayer for protection. So if you know the prayer of protection, say it along with me. If you're joining us online, I believe the words are there on your screen. So let us pray. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. So I wanted to share with you a reading this morning before we have our guest artist come and do a song for us. And I love the idea of what we're moving into today, being that it's 1 week before Easter, because it's a time of preparation, a time of preparing ourselves for the idea that we celebrate next week, that idea of Christ being born, being resurrected within each one of us. So this is a pamphlet that Becky brought in actually this morning, and it was exactly in alignment with what I'm talking about today. It's put out by Unity. 40 Days of Letting Go, Lent 2023. Today's topic in here is preparing the way. Greeted by adoring throngs spreading cloaks and branches before him, Jesus must have understood the crowd's jubilation was fleeting. He knew he would not fulfill their expectation and that Rome would be defeated. He knew his purpose was greater, to reveal that God's kingdom transcends all earthly reality, even death. Like palm fronds thrown before Jesus on the road, each time we release a limiting belief, pattern, or behavior, we pave the way for the divine to enter our consciousness and free spirit to work in our lives. But here's the thing. Raising consciousness is an evolutionary process. Releasing negativity is not one and done. As long as we're traveling this material plane, the world will provide palm fronds to lay before truth. The good news. Each branch we cast brings us into more perfect alignment with the divine, as we grow in love and compassion for ourselves and others. My friends, if anyone is detected in a transgression, you who have received the Spirit should restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness. Take care that you yourselves are not tempted. And that is from Galatians 6:1. And Preparing the Way this morning was written by Reverend Kurt Konda. And it comes with this affirmation. I pave the way for truth by letting go of limiting thoughts. So I would like to invite you, if you feel called, to say this out loud with me this morning. I'll repeat a section and you can repeat it back. I pave the way for truth. I pave the way for truth by letting go of limiting thoughts, So let's say that all together. I'll say the whole phrase and then you can say it with me. I pave the way for truth by letting go of limiting thoughts. I pave the way for truth by letting go of limiting thoughts. And so it is. Matt and Becky.
What I would do to have the kind of faith it takes to climb out of this boat I'm in, onto the crashing waves, to step out of my comfort zone into the realm of the unknown, where spirit is, and it's holding out its hand. But the waves are calling out my name, they laugh at me, reminding me of all the times I've tried before and failed. The waves, they keep on telling me time and time again, boy, you'll never win. You'll never win. And the voice of truth tells me a different story. And the voice of truth says, do not be afraid. And the voice of truth says, this is for my glory. Out of all the voices calling out to me, I will choose to listen and believe the voice of truth. Oh, what I would do to have the kind of strength it takes to stand before a giant with just a sling and a stone, surrounded by the sound of 1,000 warriors shaking in their armor, wishing they'd have had the strength to stand. But the giant's calling out my name and he laughs at me, reminding me of all the times I've tried before and failed. And the giant keeps on telling me time and time again, boy, you'll never win. You'll never win. And the voice of truth tells me a different story. And the voice of truth says, do not be afraid. And the voice of truth says, this is for my glory. Out of all the voices calling out to me, I will choose to listen and believe the voice of truth.
But the stone was just the right size to put the giant on the ground. And the waves, they don't seem so high on top of it looking down. I will soar with the wings of eagles when I stop and listen to the sound of Spirit singing over me.
And the voice of truth tells me a different story. And the voice of truth says, do not be afraid. And the voice of truth says, this is for my glory. Out of all the voices calling out to me, I will choose to listen and believe. I will choose to listen and believe the voice of truth. I will listen and believe. I will listen and believe the voice of truth. I will listen and believe. I will listen and believe the voice of truth.
Wow. Thank you so much, Matt and Becky. That's fantastic. I love that song. It is so one of my favorites. So, preparing for change is what I want to talk about today. When Jesus arrives into Jerusalem, the reason he's coming and the reason it's a big deal is because people are sensing there's a possibility for change. There's a hope that things might be different. And so when we're looking at change coming, whether we're looking at change on a personal level and how we experience our own lives individually, or if we're looking at a change for our community, for our society, for our civilization, change seems like a brilliant plan, and then we get into the actual work of it and the actual reality of it. And all of a sudden, change can be daunting. If someone's ever thought about remodeling their kitchen, the idea of what it'll look like when they're done with the new countertops, and if you've seen those new ways that doors close and they have all these organizational things that weren't in the houses that were built in the 70s and 80s, right? And you get excited about how great it'll be once the work is done and you can put your stuff right where you want to put it and everything's easily in reach and accessible. It's very exciting to think about the results. It's so exciting to think about how pretty the new stainless steel appliances will be and how smooth and even the floor will be and how wonderful it'll be to be in this space. So then there's the action of planning, picking out what you want it to look like, picking everything out, and you start into the process, and all of a sudden you don't have a kitchen for a while. Like, if you want to cook food, you better pull out your creativity because your stove is not plugged in. There may not be a stove, and it may be a while, depending on how the work is done. If they do a complete demo, removing everything, and then do the rebuild, and then what if they find there's stuff that needs to be done underneath all of that before you can do the part that you plan to do? It can go longer. It can mean a lot of things. So we think, change, this is a great idea. But then we get into it, and we're like, what was I thinking? Even if all of the money is there to make it happen and you have your resources, there's still that transitional period. Even if you could afford to just live somewhere else entirely while it's being done, I talked to some friends recently that redid pretty much most of their house all at once, so they just moved to a different spot. And that spot was not convenient to work. It was not convenient to friends. There were all these inconveniences made. It's like making a move and moving to a new territory and learning where the new stores are close to that facility and new routes to get to work and everything else. Anytime we instigate change, it can be disconcerting and disorienting. So it's best to do what we can to prepare for this change. And sometimes we just want to avoid change altogether, and that's a choice. And also, some change just happens. Sometimes change happens and it's not our choice. But the choice we do get to have is how we show up in that change. So if change is unfolding, how am I going to ride that tidal wave? How am I going to be with that? And so that's where we start to look at our spiritual practice. We can look at how we've been working with change and how we've been working with our processes. And then we can make decisions and decide how we want to move forward. And then we practice and we practice. So I had the privilege of being the guest speaker right as the season of Lent was beginning. And Lent is such a beautiful, rich season to consider our spiritual practice. And so we talked about during this time, a lot of people give something up. And sometimes if we want to bring in a new practice, it does require us to give something up, but Lent is really a great time to just practice a discipline. Allow ourselves to be in a space of discipline we haven't been in before. I was reading some of the very Christian, like you can be a little Christian or a lot Christian, I don't know, but I was reading some material published by a Christian group that isn't necessarily one that I study, but just for perspective. I love getting different perspectives. And I was reading it, and it was talking about how Lent is definitely about giving something up. There's something about giving something up that causes suffering, and we need that suffering for this purpose of spiritual development. And I was like, okay, in New Thought, we don't look at it like we're trying to suffer. We're not trying to cause suffering. But I have noticed that anytime I want to activate personal growth within myself, it certainly tends to foster some discomfort. Can I get an amen? I know I'm speaking to a room and a group of people that is not new to the idea of personal expansion, but that is change. And just like going through the remodel of a kitchen, personal change can also be disconcerting, uncomfortable. We have to relearn how to do things. And if we don't, we're not actually fully ushering in the change. If we get into the kitchen remodel and they remove the appliances and we say, that's too much, let's just put the new appliances in and we're just not going to worry about changing out the floors or the countertops because that was all the change I could handle. Put it back, put it back. We'll have the benefit of whatever change we can wade through, and we won't have the benefit of the change that we don't wade through. So as we allow the discomfort, we can allow a new outpicturing of our lives. And I know that this awareness is such an important awareness, and we don't always prepare ourselves for the discomfort that we may most likely definitely be experiencing when we do change. So it's a good idea to prepare ourselves. I had a very, very dear friend a couple years ago lose a lot of weight, and like hundreds of pounds. And the amazing thing about losing hundreds of pounds is when you're done, you don't look the same. You don't feel the same. You don't experience life the same in any way, shape, or form with that size of a transition. And the amazing thing about her process was that she was able to maintain not putting on all that weight back on. She's still so much smaller now than when she started that journey. And I believe that the reason she was able to be so successful on her journey is because she didn't start with a diet. She actually started by getting to know herself. She started by starting to understand what was going on within her and how she was using the food to address her struggle within herself. And when she found ways to heal herself from that which was struggling her, I didn't say that right. When she learned how to heal that with which she was struggling, then she was ready to then let her body regulate and to be a more healthy, natural weight where it could be long-lasting. If she hadn't done that work, then she probably would have experienced what millions of dieters have experienced, and that is you lose the weight and then it comes back. If there's not a shift in our thinking and our understanding of how we show up in the world and how we see ourselves, we can't have a shift in the experience of how we show up. So I come from a tradition of religious science, and in our teaching we talk about we first have to change our mind, and then we can change our experience. But everything begins in consciousness. Everything begins in idea. And once we have that idea, it moves into form and expresses outwardly. And so I definitely took some time to look at some Unity materials to see where those parallels were, because I know there are so many parallels in that. So as we're going through and talking about preparing for change today, there's so many nuances. I thought, oh, preparing for change, that's a pretty straightforward, small topic. And then I realized there are so many aspects. This could be a year-long study with a course where you learn something new every week. So I'll try and keep it focused. But I did want to share with you a reading from Keep a True Lent, and this is by Charles Fillmore, who is one of the founders of Unity. So he says that Palm Sunday is the Sunday preceding Easter. Jerusalem, the holy city, symbolizes within us the habitation of peace, possession of peace, vision of peace, and abode of prosperity within us. Let's take a breath on that and just imagine that Jerusalem within our being. The holy city symbolizes within us the habitation of peace, the possession of peace, the vision of peace. In man, Jerusalem is the abiding consciousness of spiritual peace, which is the result of continuous realizations of spiritual power tempered with spiritual poise and confidence. Spiritual poise and confidence, tempering power. And that brings about peace. And then Charles Fillmore continues to say, Jerusalem symbolizes the great nerve center just back of the heart. From this point, spirit sends its radiance to all parts of the body. Jesus symbolizes our I am identity. In other words, our divine identity. His going up to Jerusalem, symbolically, means our taking the last step in unfoldment preparatory to the final step when the personality is entirely crucified and Christ triumphs. Jesus riding the ass into Jerusalem means the fulfillment of time when spiritual I am within us takes control and lifts all the animal forces up to the spiritual plane of mastery, purity, and peace. When the I am takes charge of the body, a new order of things is inaugurated. The vitality is no longer wasted. Through high and pure ideals, the whole consciousness is raised to a higher standard. The hosannas of the rejoicing multitude and the spreading of their garments and branches of trees before Jesus represent joyful obedience and homage that all the thoughts in one's consciousness give when an error state of mind is overcome. Blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. In the name of Jesus Christ I affirm, the spirit of him that raised up Jesus dwells in me, and I am made perfect. So thank you, Charles Fillmore, for that preparation of the space. And so I notice on Palm Sunday when we talk about the story when Jesus is entering into Jerusalem, palm leaves are waved and also laid on the ground, and garments are laid on the ground. The way is made for the entrance of light. The way is made for the entrance of that wisdom. And the interesting thing about that is I notice how it is so important that if we as individual human beings would like to experience a deeper wisdom, we actually need to prepare ourselves. We need to prepare ourselves in understanding that it's possible. So if someone is wanting to have a really lovely remodeled kitchen, that is never going to happen until the person first realizes it is possible for me to remodel my kitchen. That is the first step. Without the realization that there is an option to remodel the kitchen, it will not be remodeled. And because I've had the honor and privilege of being involved with New Thought movements since I entered into adulthood, I have had the opportunity to watch myself from the perspective of watching myself grow in my spiritual understanding from like that outside position, because they teach us how to do that when we start doing these practices, right? To be the watcher of our own lives. And I've noticed myself going through some of these things where I need to prepare the way. So has anyone ever had that experience where you're going about your life, you're doing your thing, and you're like, man, this is just so annoying. Why is this always like this? And then why this, and it comes up again. Why is this so annoying? And then you're like, it's still annoying. And a year goes by. It's still happening. It's still annoying. And I'm so annoyed by this. And it goes on possibly for years on end, this thing that's bothering you. And then all of a sudden you realize, wait, I could do something about that. The placement of a piece of furniture, it's just, I trip on it every time I go by it. And after 58 times of stubbing your toe, you're like, wait, I could move that furniture. And then you're like, why did it take that long to realize I could just move the furniture? I don't know if you've had this experience, but I've had this experience with myself. And I have to say, when I catch myself in that, I laugh. How did I not see that? I consider myself an intelligent human. I consider myself good at puzzles and good at figuring things out. But yet, the fact that I can do something about this and didn't realize it, for as long as I didn't realize it, I sit and I'm stunned, and then I just laugh. What else can you do? I mean, I suppose you could condemn yourself and you stupid, blah, blah. I'm grateful that I don't do as much of that anymore. I'm sure I have aspects where I do that. But that preparation of the way is first, you have to realize that you have power in your situation. And it is so profound. So that comes into the choosing, making a determination of what it is you want to change. So once you realize that you want to move the furniture, that actually opens up a whole little can of worms. Like, where are you going to move it to? Is it useful to you? Do you even want to keep the piece of furniture at all? And then if you don't want to keep the furniture, then you have to figure out how you're going to get rid of it. Does it go in the trash can? Does it go to the upcycling? Are you going to sell it? Would you like a profit for this? Is it something you want to gift to someone? It opens up all these decisions to make, and you get to make them. You have to make them. It just depends on your frame of mind. It's to be done with now that you know it's yours to do. Sometimes you can say, hey, this is here. I don't love that it's here, and I don't want to do anything about it. Would you like to handle this? Yes, I would love to handle that because I want to keep that and I want to take it home with me. And if you're good with that, and then all of a sudden it's decided. But the point is we get to decide what needs to change, and we get to decide how involved we're going to be in that change, and we get to decide the direction of that. And if it's something that we want a lot of choice in, like, I don't know about you guys, but I spend a lot of time in my kitchen. I've raised 4 kids, and whether I want to be in the kitchen or not, I have needed to spend a lot of time there. So now I have an opinion about what my kitchen needs to look like. So if I'm going to do a kitchen remodel, I need to have some input. And what I know is I really like cooking on a gas stove. And what I know is gas is stinky, and I have the nose of a bloodhound. So I need the vent over my stove to pull some air. I need it to just suck all the gas smell right out the top. So that's what I need for me to be happy in my kitchen. And so I'm going to make these decisions and move forward in that. And the process of getting there, if I recognize that it's going to be uncomfortable, I can say, okay, am I okay with this much change this fast, or do I want to slow it down? Do I want to change all of it at the same time, or do I want to just change a couple of components? During the time I'm not going to have a stove, do I first want to say, I need to figure out how I'm going to cook and provide for my family during the time of not having a stove? If I think of these things ahead of time, I can prepare ways to prepare food over here. Like if it's hot in the summer, I could just really use the heck out of my grill, which I don't think is really a problem. So we could do a lot of grilling. And then it eases the transition. So there's that opportunity of planning. Now, we do really good planning when we study and do our homework. There's a lot of different ways to replace your stove. You could pay someone to do it. And that requires a lot of study too, because you have to study who you're hiring to change your stove. It could go very badly, especially if there's not already a gas line going to where your stove belongs. So it's important to study on how to do the work properly, or important to study on who's doing the work. Anyway, there's study. There's study to decide what stove you want. Does it make sense to invest this amount for these bells and whistles, or does it make sense to start off on a more basic unit here? There are choices to make, and there's study that has to go into it to make sure you're making the choices that'll work for you. If you choose not to study, you just move forward with an action. And when you move forward with an action, that action will teach you, and that's a way you can study too. So you can say you don't want to study, but I'd like to argue that you are studying, and you will study. The question is, would you like to do research online and get information and then make an action? Or would you like to make 3 or 4 actions and learn from those until you get to where you're trying to go? It's all study. Study is such an important part of change. When we are involved with change, if it's intentional or unintentional, it's going to take us where it's going to take us, and we're going to be right where we're at. I know that sounds obvious, but when we think about that's going to happen ahead of time, then we understand how important it is that we can have input, because we're going to be wherever we're going to be. So how do you want to be there? And so studying options is great, and then studying how to get there is good. So if I want to get from here to there, how do I want to go? So we get to study those different options. Have you guys ever planned something where you start studying and figure things out, and you get halfway in, and then you start to doubt that maybe it's not actually possible? You start remodeling your kitchen, you're like, what was I thinking? This isn't possible. I'm not ever actually going to have the kitchen of my dreams. I mean, everything keeps going wrong, and I'm not going to get there. Have you been midstream and had that doubt creep in? So here's the tricky thing about that. When doubt creeps in, if we're not careful, anything that we believe and put our energy into and invest in as a true idea, we tend to bring into existence in our lives. So if we start believing that the kitchen isn't going to finish, things can start happening. Contractors can start leaving. People who aren't contractors, that are just friends, family, you yourself might find yourself confused and the work is no longer clear. Things can start happening that our mind then allows to happen. And people do get into the middle of construction projects and stop. And it will stay there, stuck in time, until someone decides to make a change and begin the process and believe it can be done. So just as quickly as we believe that it can change, we have to really monitor what we're thinking about our process. And it's hard to monitor that because as human beings, we have this pattern. We believe strongly in the experience we're currently having. So if we believe that we're in pain, and I've been in pain for months, therefore, this is the way it is, therefore, truth is I will always be in pain. And that tends to be how we think. And one of the reasons that why we do what we do in New Thought is so important is that's not capital T truth. What we think has way more of an effect on our experience than what has happened in the past. So we say the phrase, the past is not precedent. And that's a really short way to say, just because that's what's been happening doesn't determine that that's what will always continue happening. And that's what belief is about. And so we have to really monitor our beliefs and notice what we're believing about our situation. And if we recognize that we're believing something that is not in alignment with what we're choosing for our direction, it's time to come back to that stillness and come back to that centering, come back to that openness where we can allow ourselves to be divinely inspired by the universe itself, because in God, all things are possible. In God, all things are possible. So change that we wish to experience is possible. And in order to continue on that, sometimes we need a reset. So we talk about making a plan and going where we want to go based on the choice that we've made to go in that plan. I just want to remind you that Spirit laughs in the face of a plan. You make a plan, I can promise one thing will happen. It will not go as you plan. So why make the plan? And I'll tell you why we make the plan. Because it provides a direction. We just need to understand that when we make a plan, we have to hold it gently. We have to hold it with open palms, with an understanding that it's going to shift and change. We have to hold it with the understanding that things will reconfigure and we will need a new plan. But if we don't engage in the process, then we're taking away all of our own choice. And that's where the pain and the suffering comes, is when we're not dancing with life. We need to be engaged with our process. So when we have our plan, we want to hold it gently. And so we're surrendering to that process, and we're surrendering and clearing out ideas that are no longer serving. So in my kitchen remodel, if I have a stovetop that is ceramic, gosh, I can't stand ceramic stovetops. I know they're pretty and shiny, but if you actually cook food, they're so annoying. It's an insulative material. Okay, I digress. Okay, so we have to first release the stovetop that's not working to make space for the stovetop we want to put in. We have to release that. The same is true with our own being. If we are constantly experiencing struggle with abundance and not enough money, we have to actually release the idea of lack of worthiness, that we're not worthy of abundance. Now, the funny thing about this is I could pick any experience, and it's funny because all the different things relate to each different experience. And I know what I just said was so unspecific that you probably have no idea what I'm trying to say, so let me clarify. If a person is struggling with finances, it doesn't necessarily mean the reason they're struggling with finances is because they feel unworthy. It could also mean a bunch of other things as well. And so you have to look into that. So if I say, it's really easy to explore this with the idea of the law of attraction. The Secret came out, people started saying, ooh, I could have something I want. Fast cars are really popular. A lot of people say, I want a really pretty car. So someone says, okay, how do I get this really pretty car? How do I attract it? Well, you need to be very specific with what you want. And so the way they respond is, oh, so I need to pick the color, I need to pick the engine size, I need to pick the whether it's a manual or an automatic transmission. No. What we actually need to pick is what we want to experience in owning and driving the car. What's important is our experience. And what I want is the feeling of freedom. But someone else is saying, well, the reason I want a fast car is because I want to look good. And I want to feel like I'm beautiful. And then another person says, no. When I drive an expensive car, I know that I'm valuable. I know that I have value. And so it's really important to figure out what it is that we're feeling, what need it is we're trying to fill. And if we find the need that we're trying to fill, and we understand the qualities, we lean into the qualities. Because the qualities don't change. Love doesn't change. Love is always available, and love is always for us. And the whole process of the change journey is for us to heal where we are versus the truth, which is we're worthy of love. We are worthy of acceptance. We are enough. And that's what this whole preparation is for. As we prepare and move through change, it's an opportunity for us to know ourselves, for us to more fully and deeply realize the divine that is in us and the divine that wants to express outwardly. It's more deeply an opportunity for us to be called into allowing ourselves to be that light, shining free and unfettered. And that's the whole purpose. And so it's cyclical, and it all comes back around, and it all plays together. And I had quite an experience because I didn't know what order these things were going to come in, because I kept asking them to get in order for their delivery, and they just kept chasing each other in circles because they do that. And we did that on our journey today. We talked about how one part affects another part and brings us back around. And so then Becky brought me this reading this morning, and I was noticing one of the most powerful little phrases in here as I flip real quick to our date. Here's the thing. Raising consciousness is an evolutionary process. Releasing negativity is not one and done. As long as we're traveling this material plane, the world will provide palm fronds to lay before truth. So we continue to change. And we may change part of our kitchen, but now there's more preparation to be done for the next step. And we continue to give ourselves to the process. And when we fall in that space of belief that we can't do this or we're not enough, we have community. We have spiritual community where we come to each other and say, I'm struggling. My belief is struggling that this is for me, that I am good. And we come together, and it's so easy for me to look at any of you and say, I know you. I see you. You're amazing. And to receive that coming from someone else is often what we need. I've been a spiritual practitioner for several years now, and what I have learned is I need my spiritual practitioner friends. I have an appointment with my spiritual practitioner every month because she is able to bring me back. Regardless of the struggles I'm facing in my world, she brings me back, and she knows. Christine S., you are a powerful woman. You've got this. And of course, we go way deeper than that, but she helps me see me and know that despite all my mistakes and my flaws, that I'm doing good work. I'm doing important work, and that this is okay. And she helps me remember to believe that this change that I'm moving through, that my vision is possible. And that's why we're together in spiritual communities, to remember that that change is possible. So this is us preparing. This is us preparing for change. And next Sunday when we have Easter, it's going to be an opportunity for us to be in that posture of allowing ourselves to have a deeper, bigger, grander idea of what it is to understand and experience Christ resurrecting within us. And it won't be complete, and we will go right around again next year on the same journey. And some years we're going to dive right in and give ourselves wholly, and some years we're going to kind of sit on the sidelines and go, yeah, that's cute. I'm not doing that right now. And that's okay, because there's next year. And I believe that when we move on from this experience on our physical bodies and we move on to the next plane of whatever that is, I think we still have some of these opportunities before us. Whether we're corporeal or none, we get to continue understanding ourselves as an expression of spirit. So just allow yourselves to take a breath on that. And I just want to give an affirmation as we move into some music from Matt and Becky. And just know that this journey that we're on, you are loved, you are supported, you are the beloved of the beloved, and all is well.
I was born by the river in a little tent. And just like that river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh yes, it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die, 'cause I don't know what's out there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. I go to the movies, I go downtown. Somebody telling me, say, don't hang around. Been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh yes, it will. Oh, then I go to my brother, I say, brother, help me please. But he keeps on winds up knocking me back down on my knees. Oh, there have been times when I thought I couldn't last for long, but now I think I'm able to carry on. Been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will.
And so from that space, just knowing that change is going to come and we are prepared, I just want to invite you to close your eyes and enter into a state of meditation with me. So I just invite you to find your seat and feel fully supported by that beneath you, the floor, the chair. And allow yourself to just rest into that space. I always invite meditation to happen with your spine perpendicular to the pole of gravity, and then your vertebrae just stacked beautifully one on top of the next so that you can sit effortlessly and easily. And from this space, I invite you to follow your breath. And as you breathe in, and you feel the air fill your lungs, and you let it out again. Just allow yourself to breathe easily and notice the flow. Notice that in this flow, as the air fills your lungs, it provides every need that your body has in this moment to continue its function. In this moment, you have all that you need to continue your breathing pattern. And as you exhale, just notice you're releasing that which is no longer serving your body. And what an amazing pattern this is. What an amazing circulatory process this is that we just naturally engage in every moment of our lives without really putting our attention on it. We are constantly met. Our need is constantly met. And that which we no longer need is constantly expelled and received back into the world around us, back into our atmosphere, which repurposes it for our good. So as we just take a few minutes and breathe, just notice the entire ecosystem around you conspires to support your every breath. And right now, as we continue to allow that support to just flow in and around each of us, I recognize this demonstration that the sound just happens and support flows. For when we are in the place of knowing what is true, we make space for truth to show up in ways that we can perceive it and receive it. So as we continue to focus on our breath, just know and imagine that as you breathe in, that air that supports you is a representation of love itself. Notice how it comes into your body and fills you. Notice how your bloodstream is happily carrying the resources of that love through every inch of your physical being, and every aspect of you is nurtured. Imagine that love coming in and spreading and being and doing. Recognize you're thriving in the process of that natural flow. So as with each breath, just allow it to be your sacred yes into receiving the love that is flowing through you and as you. And as you exhale, a chance to release anything that doesn't feel like love, that doesn't feel like support. If it's not serving you, let it release on your breath until you are fully in alignment with love. And as we come into that full, deep alignment, we'll notice that our exhale is no longer exhaling that which no longer serves us because we've done that. We now exhale love in a space of service. We exhale love as a gift to one another. We exhale love in that reciprocal process, that dance with the flow of life itself. So we just use this next minute to focus on our breath and recognize that circulation of love. With each breath in, that receiving. If it feels hard to receive love, we simply just recognize it without condemning or shaming. We just recognize it. And we take the pain that we may not feel worthy of love and we just release it to be repurposed by our atmosphere. And when we draw it back in, it comes in as love. And we just allow the process to repeat. And if we're not fully into that recognition yet after 3 or 4 breaths, that's okay, because this is a practice. It is cyclical and it keeps going around and around. And this practice is always available to us to continue practicing experiencing love that just comes in on the breath and release. And as you take that deep breath in, allow yourself to be supported. Allow yourself to feel that love. And as you exhale, release anything that feels like other than love that might be blocking your experience of love, that might be blocking your reception of love. Just release it on the out breath. The whole time, gentle with yourself. Recognition where you're at. It's still beautiful to do the practice. And the practice is what brings us into that alignment. And so as we participate in the process, we absolutely get a participation award because that is how we create the experience. So we just allow ourselves to focus. Inhale, receiving love. Exhale, releasing any block from receiving love. Inhale, we receive from the universe. Exhale, sharing the love pouring forward from us. Take 3 more breaths, knowing that your practice today is cemented in your memory and that your subconscious will continue this practice as you bring your attention back, and that every breath today is a healing breath. Every breath today is bringing you into agreement with your value and with your light and with your purpose. So we say thank you, Spirit, thank you, Universe, for this reminder. Subconscious, this is yours to continue practice, and we bring our attention back to the room. We notice where we're sitting in our seats. When we're ready, we open our eyes, and we see right where we are. And we just sit and stay in this experience in these next few minutes as Becky and Matt share their next song with us.
this day to know God in a deeper way. I choose this day to know God in a deeper way. I choose this day to know God in a deeper way. You know, I choose this day to know God in a deeper way. I choose this day to know God in a deeper way. Join me. I choose this day to know God in a deeper way. I choose this day to know God in a deeper way. I choose this day to know God in a deeper way. I choose this day to know love in a deeper way. I choose this day to know joy in a deeper way. I choose this day to know joy in a deeper way. I choose this day to know God in a deeper way. I choose this day to know God in a deeper way.
Yes, yes, I do. Thank you, Matt and Becky. That was just perfect. And so, as we're choosing to know God in a deeper way, I'd like to invite you to continue supporting Unity of Tacoma with your gifts, with your financial gifts, with your time, and with your talents. And for those of you that would like to share your financial gifts with us today, we have a box in the back of the room to collect an offering that you can leave in the box after our service. If you're online, we have a couple ways you can give. You can go to facebook.com/Unity of Tacoma and give on Facebook. Also, our website has options, unityoftacoma.org/donate. And also, you can donate through Zelle. Our telephone number for Zelle is 253-576-3225. Also, you can just mail us a check at Unity of Tacoma, P.O. Box 112289, Tacoma, Washington, 98411. And if you need that address again, it's available on our website at unityoftacoma.org. So as we prepare our gifts, I would like you to hold the intention of prosperity within your hands. Visualizing the circulation of abundance flowing through you, as Jesus said in Luke 6:38, given you will receive, you will be given much, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. It will spill into your lap. The way you give to others is the way God will give back to you. So as you visualize holding your gift in your hands, please repeat after me. Divine love, flowing through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I am grateful for my blessings today, and I am grateful in every way. And so it is. Amen. So may the blessings of your gift bring more blessings back to you, and we really thank you for your gift and support of Unity of Tacoma. Some announcements that we have. Yesterday, we gathered together and made sandwiches to help feed homeless. And my understanding is there were like 100 sandwiches that were made and sent out for people in need of food right now. That's incredible. Let's have a round of applause. That's fantastic. And so next Sunday is Easter, and next Sunday the guest artist is going to be Stephen Plummer, and our guest speaker is going to be Cindy Akana. So join us here at the space in Tacoma, or you could also join us on Facebook or on YouTube later and celebrate your Easter with us here. And so now we have our closing song with Matt and Becky. If you'd like to and it's comfortable for you, please stand and join us singing Let There Be Peace on Earth.